whatever franchise you go into, a good franchise person is going to provide you with everything you need, everything that's going to work. And all you have to do is follow the system. And I think that is just golden.
Don't recreate the wheel. There is a system in place. I got news for people that, that you come in and you join a franchise system. Your personal system is not better. Stop believing that your way of doing it is better. You bought a franchise, or you're thinking about buying a franchise for a reason. There's a reason why you're doing it. Follow the systems. Don't pretend like yours is better.
Hello, welcome everyone. So glad to have you here for another episode of the Care to Lead interview series. Today, we're going to be discussing what franchise owners wish they knew before they opened their franchise. And we're excited today to be joined by Andy Kurth, who has been in the lawn care industry for almost 2 decades. His career began at Weedman as a sales manager in 2005. And from there, he worked his way up to the Madison location to general manager, co-owner, and now chief executive officer. Today, he oversees 22 locations that span 10 states, grossing over $50 million in sales. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so happy to have you here, Andy.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So why don't you give us a little backstory? I know it's in your article, but just give us some backstory about how you got into this business. And did you ever, I know you mentioned you didn't really see yourself being in the lawn care industry.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a unique circumstance in that I have family history in lawn care, but it wasn't really a path when I was in high school or college that I was like, well, this is really what I want to do, is go be in the business of taking care of grass. I've always been an outdoorsman and like being outdoors. But during college, it was more or less an ease of having a summer job as a lawn care technician, and that I could make good money. And then in college, during the school year, I could be doing sales at night. And I always kind of joke, like, for beer money, and maybe to pay rent and some groceries. But I just kind of thought, like, well, I'm pretty good at this. Like, I can do this. And I'm like, I like the industry. The people are great. It's just nice that there's something different all the time. And that's what led me to jumping all in with Weedman.
It's also obviously a franchise opportunity for people. And I'm just going to ask you, I live off of a golf course. We have 14 acres of ground, and there's only like a few acres that are actually manicured. But we have a lawn service, obviously. And what I've noticed over the years is retention. They have so much trouble keeping people and finding the staff. They're always in a rush. How is that working for your franchise owners?
So at Weedman, obviously it's a franchise since we're locally owned and operated, that in and of itself generally leads to much higher levels of retention. There's just a little bit more boots on the ground in intentional culture building and caring for your employees and caring for the customers. I think that's big. For us, when I was younger, my motives were much more based on making money, personal income. And as I started having children and growing a family, there was some semblance of a natural transition to less worried about me making personal, income gains and how I could better the lives of people in our organization, to being a chance to buy their first car, maybe rent a house, and not have to share an apartment, to, eventually maybe owning their first home. So once I started having that level of a mindset, most of our decisions started to change towards how you become an employer of choice. And I think that's the term I like to use, is that especially through COVID or after COVID, there's just a plethora of jobs. People can go wherever they want. They don't need, employees don't need you as the employer. So you better figure out a way for them to want to be there.
Now, you talk in your article about systems that you have in place to help develop your employees. I guess as an executive leadership coach, I'm really curious about what types of systems you were referring to.
Ooh, that's a loaded question. So we have a great systems management with Weedman as a franchise system. And then as we've pivoted in E3, or our organization called Epic 3 Inc., we have franchises in 10 states. So we've had to create our own internal culture. And I think that is our largest strength in our organization, is that even before COVID, we started to move towards remote work for much of our staff. Obviously, for people that are out in the field treating lawns, we can't have remote staff, right? But we had already made the transition for our sales force to be at home. So it was a very natural transition during COVID for us to capitalize on that wave. Since we've gone the route of our data department, our customer service department, and that has really helped us take advantage of some of the gains in our industry. But if you don't do it the right way, you could be in a problem where you have enormous amounts of turnover, right? And a really hard way to manage that. So we've had to create, I'll call it internal systems, but by and large, they're just culture. Like how are we getting back to being an employer of choice? We have to create a sense of community for people that work from home. And I think that's been really neat in terms of like our sales team getting together before shifts remotely. And you would think it'd be all about development training, listening to calls and, dissecting what's good and what's bad. And then when I jump on and I listen to our director of sales talk about trying to survey all their employees about, is a hot dog a sandwich? I mean, just something absolutely irrelevant, right, to lawn care. But the sense of community that we've been able to create with people that maybe have never met each other in their entire lives. I think that's a great example.
Yeah, we refer to that as connection before content. When you get on these meetings, build that connection. I'm also curious for you about what it was like. You grew up in this family business, and franchising, you could have gone like a million different directions, but running franchises and operating them and opening these new locations requires a certain kind of leadership skills. So what do you think that you have learned to get your mindset to go from in the weeds with a lawn guy? I didn't mean that, but being, hands-on to being more of a leadership role?
So I think you asked the question regarding to, as we've gotten much larger, how I've gone from, or what I've learned from maybe having more boots on the ground to cascading over many areas. So I would say, again, I know it's kind of like a broken record, but it's been by and large how we take care of people. And if we have the right focus in place at how we're bettering lives, that generally is leading us to more opportunities. So we do create a vision of saying to people in various, across all of our locations, that opportunity comes first. So one of our mottos or our main mission here is people, opportunity, community. We take care of our people, but by taking care of our people, we need to be providing them opportunity for personal growth. And that's what we really focus on is opportunity for personal growth, whether they want to stay in the same area or whether they'd like to uproot their lives and create a new opportunity. And then with that, we're able to, in turn, take care of the communities we serve with things like the Ronald McDonald House and many different community involvement projects.
Awesome. Does AI have any impact on your business at this juncture? I mean, ultimately, it's going to impact every industry, but I'm curious what it's doing for yours right now.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. Does what impact?
AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh, AI. Yeah, I would love, it isn't yet dramatically. I would like it to be. I think that's something that's integral over the next 5 years that we have to continue to work through. And I know working with corporate Weedman that we're in the process of trying to look at, API connections to third-party artificial intelligence. And, I would say we're not on the front wave of that. And maybe that's okay as long as we're on the second one. Being in the first wave, is probably is a little risky at times. So we're working our way through that. But absolutely, I could see administratively, customer service wise. Well, I listened to an Orkin piece last week, which they had partnered with an AI company and what that had done for their customer service, which is already showing extraordinary results and gains.
Yeah, there's so many pieces to it. One of the things with all of the CEOs that I coach, I have told every single one of them that AI is obviously it's here to stay, and it will not just. A lot of people look at AI and they say systems, processes, making things go more smoothly, customer service, and so on. I always encourage the CEOs that I work with to think bigger. because it's going to disrupt your industry in a massive way. And if you can be the one who thinks of what that looks like and is on the forefront of that, then it's a win in so many ways, because everyone else is just going to go, damn, why didn't I think of that? So like, now's the time to be thinking in those ways. I find it really exciting. How about you?
I think it's going to be extraordinary. I can't even imagine. Like I said, so we take thousands of calls, thousands of interactions with clients, and many of those, I don't, maybe from the customer perspective, you get a little concerned about like dealing with a bot or something like that. But in all reality, the technology is going to become so good. People want access to information is like immediately, right? As fast as possible. And this would allow that to happen at a much more efficient clip. And I think everybody will win.
I totally agree with that. As you think about your franchise owners, you oversee 22 locations. Do each one of those 22 locations have their own like manager and teams, and you're just overseeing all of them, or does your team manage all the teams?
Yeah, good question. So our structure is set up in a way that we have branch managers in each brick and mortar location to service our clients. We then have a general manager structure where those branch managers or maybe more like a regional manager structure where they report to a regional manager. So maybe somewhere between 4 and 6 locations would report to a regional manager. Those silos or those folks, generally speaking, are in charge of the service on lawns and then the marketing efforts in the field. Like when we're not treating lawns, or we'd have a different team to do direct marketing. We then have a sales department that is all remote and not connected directly to those brick and mortar locations. And the same would be for customer service. We may silo them out in terms of like regionalizing expertise, but they are not, they don't report into those actual service branches. And that may be the better way to put it, is that the locations are much more service related as boots on the ground. So everybody else is more of a departmental structure over our 10 states and 22 locations. And then we have a director of sales, director of marketing, finance, a director of administration, and then a COO that reports to me, Shane Griffith, who was fantastic.
Could you describe a pivotal moment or decision that you think that you've made over the years that has significantly impacted your business success?
The first thing that comes to mind, it's funny you say that. We had this conversation last week with a different group. And I think I mentioned this in the article, is that there is generally a group of people that get you to a certain size that are right down in there when you're in the trenches and you're doing a lot of the work, working long hours, just trying to get the business off the ground or get it to a certain stage. In those moments, those were the right people. They were, absolutely. But having the ability to pivot at a certain point, and it happens, I've heard this happen to multiple businesses, where you have nice growth and then all of a sudden you start to flatten a little bit. And it might be a case in which you've, unfortunately, I know it's kind of sucks to even say this, but you've outgrown the people you have on the bus, their ability to help get you to the next place. And maybe I was lucky, maybe I had the right foresight, I don't know. But we were able to pivot in that moment and start making some tough decisions and getting the people on the bus that we needed to help skyrocket the business forward. And making that decision was instrumental in our ability to cascade and to multiply and to be able to create, locations across 22 locations. There's always a place for people in the journey, and just recognizing when maybe those changes are needed, I think is important.
I think that's a really valid point, because often leaders who don't want to make that decision for a lot of personal reasons, and they feel bad and they don't want to do it, and they hold on until it's too late. You have to be smart enough to see that ahead and take action and pivot, as you said. So that's very good. I was thinking of asking about you oversee 22 locations. You have 22 franchises. If I were just a person who said, I think I want to open a franchise of Weedman, I don't want to have 22. Could I still make money? Could I still be successful?
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking for Weedman, our system has such a family orientation to it, in which case that the amount of support and being able to just call another franchise or another franchisee and just ask for advice, ask for help. Hey, how are you guys working through this? We do this all the time, both ways, going, and we may call somebody that isn't a single franchisee that is just doing unbelievable in a certain facet of the company. And we're like, well, we got to be better. So we got to figure out what they're doing. But no, there is a plethora of franchisees that are doing extraordinary things and having extraordinary growth in a single location platform under one roof. Yes.
What are some of the geographic regions that you're looking to grow, Weedman?
I would say the Northeast. So I think there's a great amount of opportunity around like Boston in the density there. I think there's even more opportunity down around DC. I know that we have a few franchises there, but I believe there's more opportunity there. I know another one that is relatively open would be the Seattle metro area, which could be a phenomenal opportunity, as well as I believe most of Portland. Those are some examples. I could probably keep going. But again, by and large, Weedman has been very successful in terms of getting a lot of franchisees and family-owned operations across the country. But yeah, people can go online and look.
When you said Boston, it made me think, all right, that's great in the summer. What does a Weedman franchise owner and their employees do in the winter?
So I am sitting right now in the rural parts outside of Madison, Wisconsin. So yes, I can relate to winter. But so over time, again, that's part of the evolution of our business, at least how we choose to do it. Years ago, we would have just laid off everybody, or all like the technicians, for example, and they either would do something else all winter, or maybe they would take cash jobs and plow snow. I don't know. But nowadays, again, as we've looked to change the culture and the opportunity for our people, we try to find ways to keep them employed. So certain individuals will do direct marketing, which means they will door to door. And that's really challenging. It's really hard. But again, it's about building the culture of what we expect. And if they want opportunities to become a supervisor, to become a manager, maybe lead a branch, then that's part of the evolution of what they need to do. They need to take those steps and do the hard things to go out there to be prepared for the next opportunity. Some, we're fortunate because we have enough scale. But some individuals will stay on and maybe they won't go out and do direct marketing, and they'll go all winter and they'll join our sales team and work from home. So we have more opportunities today than we would have done in the past. And again, because of our scale and size, there's no down season for us, because even though I'm sitting in Madison, Wisconsin, lawns need to be treated in Austin, Texas in January, right? So for us, there's just not a lot of downtime. But even in the north, we've been more creative to try to use our staff for growth for the business and for them.
One of the things that you mentioned is like the almost like, I don't want to say check boxes because I know that's not what you meant, but the way someone can move up to be a branch manager or something like that. Do you ever hire someone in at that level, or do they all have to start at the bottom and work their way up within the organization?
We certainly do. I can think of a couple individuals right out of the gate that we've hired in those positions that are very successful for us. But our model has been by and large, growing people, creating opportunity. So I would probably say 90+% of our branch managers have been internally grown.
Okay, that's good though. Then that's kind of how you did it, right?
Yep.
Internal growth.
Yeah. And, I think that that's never left our hearts, right? Provide opportunity for people that are here and want to be here, hold the mirror up to their face still and make sure that they understand, what winning and and when we're winning, when we're losing, but give them the opportunity to succeed. And, the sky's the limit.
Are there any misconceptions or myths about franchising that you'd like to debunk?
Well, the very first thing that comes to mind is, why would you pay somebody a franchise fee? Why wouldn't you just do it on your own? Like, well, you hear that all the time, right? And it's like, well, I can't even imagine the costs and the time to try to figure out all of the systems that have already been proven and developed with a company like Weedman. Why you would ever consider trying to go it alone and figure it out? I don't have the numbers in front of me. Cynthia, you probably do, or somebody probably does. What are the percentages of failure in a franchise as a franchisee versus a startup, standalone business, I have to believe that they're extraordinarily different. So I would say that your chance for success goes dramatically higher, and you have such a support system. And that's one of the, not only the systems, but the ability to pick up the phone and call somebody that's already had to go through, all those blood, sweat, and tears. You're not going to call a competitor across town and say, "Hey, how are you solving this?" Right? Well, you can now call all these people that are all want you to succeed just as much as you want to succeed.
And there's something to be said for a brand name that people recognize. Correct. As opposed to Joe's Lawn Service or Joe's Weed Service.
Yeah. And that's been helpful. You're right. I mean, even across, we hear customers all the time that, I moved, I just moved to Denver, or something. And I used you guys in Austin or Matt, whatever, right? It might not even be one that we own. It might be a different franchise that's owned somewhere else, right? And they're like, "Yeah, you guys did a great job. So I just immediately called you." Right?
Yeah,
Back
absolutely.
to your brand.
Yeah, that goes far. And as I'm thinking about franchises, and this may not be true, but I did hear somewhere, I'm not claiming this to be true, but I heard somewhere that Chick-fil-A is probably the hardest franchise to get, and it's easier to get into Harvard than it is to get a Chick-fil-A franchise. So I don't know if that's true, but I have heard it. Urban legend. I'm curious how hard it is for someone to get a franchise of Weedman.
Financially speaking, I believe it's going to come in as a very affordable opportunity in the franchise compared to many in the franchise world, specifically Chick-fil-A, I would say, or anything with, with brick and mortar stores like that, where it's very
expensive.
Yeah. So I would say it's not that challenging fiscally or financially. I would say that we hold a bar up as franchisees even of the kind of people that we would want as peers. And the franchisor, Jen Lemke, CEO, and her team, I mean, the bar is set as a family atmosphere that are people that are willing to hustle and get after it, but obviously have the wherewithal to grow a business very effectively. So no, you can't just be anybody off the street and jump in. But I would say that there's plenty of room for opportunity for most that are looking.
I know that a lot of people, open franchises or they buy a franchise. Maybe they're an executive, maybe they're doing something and they say, "I'm just going to buy a franchise of some sort and it'll be like this passive income." But in most cases, that's not actually true. Is that accurate?
I would agree. I would say that's probably one of the biggest reasons why franchisees fail. I look back at some of the folks that we've acquired or that we've bought and, how we've grown to 22 locations. Many times it's somebody that either thought that it would just kind of, I bought a franchise. Well, just, that's why I bought a franchise. It just goes. It's like, well, it's still a business. It doesn't just run itself. Somebody's got to manage it. And if you're going to start a franchise and not be the active operator, you're doing it not on the side, but you're doing it in a way that you don't want to be the active operator. You better have somebody that's really good and really committed to do that. And that doesn't mean it's just a franchise, like any business, right? You don't just start something and hope it grows itself, or the other avenue is it's more character driven. It's people that tend to, maybe say, pity me or, well, it doesn't work here, and find ways to not be successful instead of trying to be, being pragmatic, being, creativity and having that hustle and having that say, like, it's one thing I learned from my dad is failure is not an option. And I've never lost that thought that if you commit to winning and you commit to finding a way, you will find a way.
Agreed.
You cannot accept failure.
I think there are a couple of things that are pretty critical from a leadership standpoint, that if you're going to succeed in a franchise type business, as opposed to and I'm going to compare this to in a corporate setting, right? You're going to go up the ladder and you're going to be this leader and you're going to do a great job and get a paycheck. But when you open a franchise, there's more things at play. When you open a franchise, there's the boots on the ground, knowing the job inside and out. And there's the leadership role where you've got to be a leader. You've got to know how to manage people. You've got to know how to get the most out of those people. You've got to know how to do all of those things. And you have to have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit that is going to know that the payoff might be a little while down the road. So franchising is great. I've worked with a lot of franchise operators, and I'm amazed at how successful they can be, but it's really challenging if you don't have the right people in the right place, or as you said, on the right people on the bus.
That's right.
So what would you like people to know about the industry? It's 5 things you wish you knew. What do you think? What do you want to share with people who might want to get into franchising?
I would say find what's right for you. I know that sounds pretty cliche, but there are so many business opportunities out there in terms of anything, but especially in terms of franchising. I would say find what's right for you. And I would always recommend first to implore to look at a franchise. So if you're looking at, well, do I go to franchise or do I do something on my own? To me, this is a no-brainer. And I know we just talked about that earlier, but the risk of trying to recreate the wheel is significant compared to just finding a system that works already. I would say find one that has reoccurring revenue. I think that's an important, at least for us, having something that you're gaining traction every year versus starting from scratch. That doesn't mean it's a little different in terms of like, well, you said Chick-fil-A. That's a different model, right? And I understand that. But for us, having something that builds wealth because of, we retain, even in explosive growth, for us, we still retain 75% of our clients. So, and we're a continual service, right? So you're compounding growth. I think that is an important thing that some people maybe just don't think about or look at if they want an exit strategy years down the road, is what is that business going to be worth when you leave? Because if it's just a store or it's just a piece of equipment, is that really what you want to leave, when you want to decide to move on to the next portion of your life?
No, absolutely. How do you see the franchise industry and specifically maybe Weedman evolving, and what opportunities do you think that holds?
Back to the AI, I would say and this is any industry, right? But there is so much that we don't even know how much is that this can affect. But I think that we have to be making extraordinary gains personally inside of Weedman in the next 5 years. And I think that could be said for every single business and every single franchise system. I would say that for one. I would say the continual move of generations as we start to have the baby boomers, maybe start to leave or get lower in terms of the portion of our client base, and we get more into Gen X or what you name the generation Gen Y. I don't even remember which one's which at this point
anymore.
But there is that buying habits are different, right? So I think that we can't rest on our laurels or well, this is the way we've always done it. This is we've been marketing on some news channel for, I'm just one example, but like some radio station. It's like, well, is that still the same strategy or the same radio station? Are you doing that, or should you be also starting the process of pivoting to digital radio and where the next generation of people that are, at least in our terms of who's buying lawn care, it's still going to be 30 to 60-year-old individuals for the most part, but having the right blend of where you're starting to find those people and how much money you start putting in to the next generation, because they're buying homes. And as they're buying homes, they're becoming lawn care customers.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say that, because I listen to Sirius Radio all the time when I'm in the car, and I bought a putter because of my Sirius Radio ads, but I always hear closet franchises and garage franchise and putting putting greens in people's yards.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I have no interest in any of those things, every single time I hear one, I'm going, who do I know? Who do I know that would be good at that? Because it is such a done for you process. Whatever franchise you go into, a good franchise person is going to provide you with everything you need, everything that's going to work. And all you have to do is follow the system. And I think that is just golden.
Don't recreate the wheel. There is a system in place. I got news for people that, that you come in and you join a franchise system. Your personal system is not better. Stop believing that your way of doing it is better. You bought a franchise, or you're thinking about buying a franchise for a reason. There's a reason why you're doing it. Follow the systems. Don't pretend like yours is better.
And once people do buy the systems, they can't fight that. Like, just go with the flow.
Yep.
Do what you're supposed to do.
Let it ride.
Yeah, because people will. There's that ego, right? It's like, all right, the franchise says this, but in my business, we're going to do it this way.
Correct.
And those are the ones that you're going to be buying and having 23, 24, 25
You got it.
locations. Yeah. So, okay, for our listeners who want to learn more about you and your work and how they can connect, tell us how to best reach you.
Oh, that's a great question. How to best reach me? You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can search for Andy Kurth, Weedman. That's probably the easiest path if you're looking for me personally.
All right.
If you're looking for lawn care, go to weedman.com.
Weedman.com. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. We've learned a lot about franchising and what you've been doing, and it's pretty impressive. And for our listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Care to Lead video series today. If you found this episode valuable and want to stay updated on our latest interviews and insights, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel or find us on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, remember, leaders who care to lead. Thank you.